Hello, this is Daniel, and we've got another artist interview here with esteemed Robert Weatherford, painter in Telluride, Colorado, a mentor of mine for the last 15 years. And it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much, Robert, for coming on stage to kind of share some of your knowledge and wisdom of experience as an artist.
Thank you. It's all very complimentary. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure.
So art's been like the mainstay of your life. What would you say is why is it so important to you to constantly be creating and going deep?
I think that's what I was meant to do. I painted from the time I was a child with whatever materials I could find. It definitely is like there's been no question that that's my purpose here.
Are there specific like themes or ideas that you like to dive into with your work and how you express yourself?
I think it's a spiritual quest, and I think it's a privilege that if you're called to do this work, that your highest good is to carry a message of significance that you believe, you're putting yourself on the line. So it's to say whatever you think the truth of life is.
So talk more about that, putting yourself on the line, this conquest as an artist.
Well, I mean, I think that's why it's so mistaken that people want to make money from art, because it's actually a much higher purpose. It's a spiritual calling, and it's a privilege, and you really get to play a role for your culture. And the stakes are so high, you don't really know your impact. The art that we revere usually takes a few hundred years for people to decide what it is, which ones are valuable and which ones are not. So you're playing a long game. You're not looking for immediate results. And if nobody gets it, that really doesn't matter, because the point is you're putting your soul on the line.
Putting your soul on the line.
Yeah.
How do you feel like as an artist, how do you put yourself out there to put your soul on the line with what you create?
Well, I think it's the message. The point of art is like, what are you saying to me? What are you talking about? Why are you taking my time if you don't have something to say? So, I mean, I guess Cezanne is always like the most useful example, but he was so committed. This is my perception. He was so committed to his work that he really he couldn't even bother to connect with what other people's expectations were. And people would go visit him in his studio, and they'd say, he says a lot of stuff, but none of it makes any sense, and no one really understood what he was up to. But the peculiarity of his work is, I think, what makes it significant. That he's not bowing down to any expectations. He's really saying what he has to say and the way he has to say it, and he's totally uncompromised. And I think that's why the work is still so far up there, that he was completely free of any commercial instinct.
This idea of the art being a higher level than kind of a monetary exchange, that it's like a divine calling. Would you say that's something that permeates the world with art, or is it more specific to certain eras? Is it a necessity to humanity?
No, I mean, humanity's done fine without art most of the time. But I think it's just another avenue where we can try and capture what are we here for? What is the significance of this opportunity? If you're not a nihilist, nihilists say, well, there's no point to life, so just enjoy it while you can. So if you're not a nihilist, then you're looking for what is the significance, and can I contribute to it? Can I actually add to the sum total of the juice of life? And that's the privilege.
I love that privilege of adding to that sum total.
Yeah.
So tell it, you've influenced me tremendously as far as looking at work in a very expressive manner, looking at narrative work, looking at gestural work that has like has an impact on your personal space, on your life. Cezanne is one of your kind of revered artists. Are
Sure.
there other artists that you look up to who have influenced your work?
I really like Soutine. I love the rawness, the pain. I mean, his still lifes, of dead birds or dead animals lying on a tabletop. Uh, they and his life was tragic. So I mean, he had a right to that deep motif, but so he addressed the suffering, and suffering is inescapable, and it's what we all struggle with. Why aren't I happy? Why doesn't somebody love me? Or there's an army coming into my neighborhood tomorrow, and they're going to burn down my house. So I mean,
Right.
is one of the most essential topics. Christ on the cross, or a Roman army, slaughtering some innocent place. It's suffering is an unavoidable theme, and I think Soutine addressed it very honestly. You know,
And would you say the artists who go in to approach suffering, approach tension, approach the uncomfortable, their work feels more potent, kind of gets to that higher level because they're going to that kind of those deeper emotions of tragedy and kind of growing from your own challenges and adversity?
not, not exactly sure I understand the question.
I guess is it necessary to have this tension,
Oh,
this
you mean
this
to be
this
this serious?
struggle
Yeah.
to show the divinity or to show the light of our one's own uniqueness?
Um, well, I think if you're not addressing the pain of life or the magnificence of life, uh, then you're being trivial and you're missing the opportunity.
Right.
Because decoration, everybody wants decoration. Decoration's very nice, but fine art is like going to a monastery. You really are supposed to be committed.
I like what you said there about the pain on one side is a binary opposite of the magnificent, and that those are kind of two polar opposites that kind of drive to a continuum as
Yeah.
far as finding a place in society and the world for ourselves. Um, Tell us about the piece of art behind you. I know you work in series. You like to do a lot of a singular image. I'm interested in if you would explain if you mind explaining your process of how you get to where you're at, how
Uh-huh.
many pieces you generally work on, and how that helps you to dive into that subject matter. And I know this subject matter here is very potent and pertinent to you. So tell us about it.
See if I can get you the whole painting, but that's going to be hard. Yeah, it's sort of like that. If I get myself out of the way. Yeah, there's a shot of the painting. So the painting is three sculptures of two of Hercules and one of Atlas. Uh, and so the theme is it really trying to reclaim in this time when we're so aware of how much we've lost a positive masculinity. I mean, toxic masculinity is the cliche of our time. So in these, I directly went to symbols from other cultures or Western European culture that showed an honorable version of being masculine. And Hercules is like the ultimate in Western culture hero. He ultimately is sacrificed. He ends up suffering on a pyre and calling out to Zeus to save him. And even in the classical image of that last thing, he's like reaching up to God, to Zeus, for relief from his suffering. But his whole life was doing deeds to kill animals that threaten people and kill wicked kings. And so he was an instrument for the good. And I think when we worship God, we're worshiping the good. And so Hercules is like a an early form of Jesus, I think. I mean, Hercules died as a sacrifice and Jesus died as a sacrifice. And I just think that motif is in lots of other cultures.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just loving life so much that you want to give everything you have. And I think we crave, we crave meaning so that life doesn't feel empty and pointless. And so giving yourself completely is one of the most appealing motifs to paint. So to avoid the triviality of how masculinity is viewed now, that it's cheapened and selfish, I wanted to refer back to those symbols because we all have them in our head. We all know all these images. But I think it's the same for men and women, that we have degraded ourselves in our culture through materialism and trying to live without deeper meaning. And we need the transcendent to be well, to be healthy. So that's the point of these pictures. And I paint in with tinted glazes, say 30 or 40 layers before I stop. And it's really just to make them luminescent, so that they really have an alive glow, kind of like alpenglow. When you see alpenglow around here in Telluride, the rocks look like radiating light. That's the kind of light that old paintings give, and it's from the Renaissance, of course. It's not anything new.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get near answering your question?
I think so. I mean, how you speak to meaning as being so important, that we're all searching for meaning. You speaking about triviality, and here you've got these motifs, these characters that especially for men and for society, like this positivity of the masculine, or the positivity of the feminine. I like that you're searching and portraying these extremes, which every single person has within themselves, and that you're willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there with it for the purpose of continuing to tell a story. You're a great storyteller. The story is an incredibly important part for you, correct?
If you don't have a story to tell, you shouldn't be making art or fine art. You can make decorative art with nothing to say, but if you don't have a need to get your heart out with its message, then you're wasting your time. But I think John's Bathers, which are such a classic for us all, I think that's his equivalent, or I'm actually, referring to him, but it's, it was like Arcadia. It was like paradise. He put these, sometimes they were all male, sometimes they were all female, and sometimes they were mixed, but they're standing around in nature around a body of water, and they're each doing innocent things. And it's just that moment, like, we're here, why don't we know and seize the sacredness of it? And I think that's why people don't know what to make of his Bather paintings, because I think they're profound. They're not, people just scratch their heads when they're looking at them. It's like, why? Because they're not academic. There are no bravura techniques whatsoever. He as we all know, he was trained academically, but his work got progressively cruder as he got deeper into his message. So you wouldn't be distracted by any technical issue. But it seemed like his ultimate message was, here we all are, let's be in awe of this moment that we are here in creation. We are created. We didn't create ourselves.
Well, that's awesome. Very beautiful, description there. Robert, what do you think artists need in this time in the world for being able to tap deeper into that sacredness, that transcendence within their work, to bypass the triviality and make work that gives them that ultimate fulfillment?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to let go of wanting approval. You have to be that lone person that's separate from the crowd. Jennifer Bartlett once told me that I told her at a show that nothing sold, and she said, "Well, actually, if everybody likes your work, it's probably no good." So it was reassuring, but it's like, you have to be so much in the commitment that you're not holding your breath that somebody's going to say you're doing a good job. You be free of that, and that's harsh. That's very hard.
Yeah.
yeah, you end up with a few hundred paintings in storage. uh,
Right.
and you have to be okay with that. I mean, I think that now that I'm 73, I think that's the message I would tell people the most is, have an absolute kind of respect for your work, and that you don't really want to be compromised for a moment. Uh, you're not going to suck up to a dealer who says, well, if you do some of these, I could sell them. You don't do that. You're not in it for the money, and you're not in it for approval. Um, and a lot of artists still judge each other's work about how technically accomplished it is. And
Mhm.
to be technically accomplished is you haven't even started. You haven't even turned a page. You've prepared, but all that technical stuff becomes a false god in making art. Because there's museum basements are jammed full of technically perfect paintings that nobody wants to look at because they say nothing.
Would you say that that technically perfect falls in line with that concept of triviality?
It's another form of false values.
Hmm.
Uh, and our ego always wants to carve out a world that only supports us. We crave it. We all want mom's approval or dad's approval or the public's approval or the dealer's approval. And so it's stark. You just have to say, well, I wake up to paint, and I paint because I feel I'm doing what I'm supposed to, and I'm willing to be the village idiot in that purpose. You know.
And Kandinsky talks about that inner need in order to create the work that's coming from deep within you. Is that similar to what you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, I went to seminary myself, so and they, when you go to seminary, they say, "Do you have a calling? Have you heard a voice that says you should do this work?" And if you say, "Well, no, I haven't ever had a calling. I just thought it would be nice," they say, "Well, why don't you go do something else for a while and see if you get that feeling?"
Hmm.
And we should really have the same attitude towards painting. If you don't feel called to this exalted privilege, but I mean, the privilege is that you get to be uh, a martyr. You're a martyr for your values because you're not going to sell out.
Because you're not compromising, you're not settling.
You're not in it for that.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, you want to
So,
make money. There are much easier ways to make money than trying to hustle in a career, as we all know.
yeah, the successful artists who can fully support themselves and their family as with their art are in the single digits. The
Yeah.
5% or more. Slightly more, or slightly less, depending on where you are. That's a huge gamble.
Well, and I think the other side of this, that's risky to say because it's not popular. But I mean, I think like the New York art world, is just completely decadent. This Jeff Koons, Banksy, Damien Hirst, we're in the toilet. It's just one shallow gimmick after another that's making millions. And that's what people think art is. And so the public's going one way and you got to go the other way.
Would that kind of that level of decadence, does that tie in with those kind of bipolar opposites of the suffering and the magnificence to go into a place of decadence?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to go big. You want to play for the biggest stakes you can. Uh, Life is very short. And if you want to be proud of yourself, these are the choices that make you either feel proud or I wished I'd had the courage, you know.
I know you have some big life transitions going on in your world right now. Are you going? Congratulations, you just recently got married, and I you
I'm a
just told
lucky
me
guy.
you're moving to Europe in a week.
Yeah.
Are you planning on keeping your? I can't. I can only believe you could not continue painting,
Oh,
creating work wherever you end up. Is that correct?
yeah. I already have a concept for the next series I want to do. I just when I start on work, I plan to work on it. Work in series, sometimes as many as 25 pieces, and so I have to be calmly established in a space and know that I can work in that space for a year or 2 or 3 years. I can't just jump into the studio for a little bit of action. So I have to complete the move and get established. But it's funny because I already have a vision of. Actually, I don't mind sharing it because everybody would do it their own way. But there's Cézanne's single bather at the Museum of Modern Art. The guy just standing by himself with his hand on his hip and his little briefs. And those bathers are important because they're from Cézanne's idyllic childhood where he and his friends hung out around this river bank. I mean, the Bather series is based on his own childhood experience. And they had these idyllic days in the south of France reading poetry to each other, sitting on the banks of this water and bathing. So it's not, the bathers are not accidental. They're like a prayer to a time that was in his mind perfect. When we lived, he and his friends were having exalted feelings in the midst of nature. And so I wanted to do these are sculptures that I painted in this series. And I have always been uncomfortable painting the figure. It's so easy to go wrong with how we use a figure. The figure is so powerful. You don't want to play with it unless you're comfortable with the risks. But so I want to paint a masculine, just my own version of the single bather. Just so it's not the heroic anymore. It's just a guy, but to really dig down into guyness and how I have to find the right model for it. But I would like to paint like 20 of those and just let them be a simple, maybe 2 foot by 3 foot, just a simple figure. And that's the magnificence because of just human bodies are magnificent. All of creation is magnificent, but just to honor that we are given these bodies and to be reverent and humble before it is the intention of the series. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That does. It sounds magnificent. And, I applaud you for having, another journey ahead of you while you
Yeah.
have a journey in front of that to even get there and find the space and create that studio and make it available. Would you say that, you talk about work in series, and from my perspective, your work in series is different than what many people imagine a work in series.
Okay.
From what I recall visiting your studio, it's often this it's like you're doing the same painting over and over and over again. You talk about these 40 to 50 layers of glaze on
Right.
20 different paintings is a monumental task of artistry. So,
Well, it necessarily makes you go deeper.
mm-hmm.
And then there's just the very simple, to me, the original reason to paint in series is because at every step of the way, every time you make a decision about the next step in the painting, you could go 10 different ways. And so if you're doing a series, you get to explore each one of those. And so because you're exploring more options at once, because the longer you paint, what you have to fight is that you paint like yourself.
Yes.
Your brain gets involved and your brain makes you paint the way you painted the last time. So painting in series kind of forces you to take different avenues so you don't just keep reproducing the paintings you've done before. That's a bad sign. But it happens if you don't fight it.
Yeah. It's a very bold approach. And, I think many of your perspectives, your ideology, on art, and then the exalted artist who's seeking this higher position. It's something that society has in so many ways pushed to the side, that commercialism
Yeah.
and making work of what's trendy, making work that is going to assuage someone's interior design.
Right.
How have you balanced creating the work you create in this world where there's so much push from the other side?
It hasn't been, every time I've had the option to sell out, some Beverly Hills gallery way back said, "Oh, I want to take you on, but you have to work with my consultant." I said, "No, I'm not working with any consultant." Uh, Everybody wants to compromise you, and they may even think they're doing you a favor because you'll make more money. But it's just money is a false value. It's just that simple. And to be committed to the voice in your heart that speaks to God, what better use of your lifetime?
Yeah, it's a beautiful description you give, and it's a hard path. It's a
Oh yeah,
very
yeah. So I'm a caretaker. So you have to find some other way to get your money. But
Mhm.
I've taught for so long, and I always tell people, you know, art is not in existence to pay your bills. Your bills have to be paid by you however you can. But it's not art's job to pay your bills. It's if you feel like you're supposed to make art, then shoulder the burden, but don't say, "Oh well, I made art for a few years, but it didn't pay, so I dropped it." Then you were just mistaken from the start.
Right. Yeah, and that's like I said, it's a very beautiful, truthful statement.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
You
even El Greco.
shunned as like a what is to be, you know? And so what advice would you give to artists who see this interview and they're like, "Oh my God, I totally resonate. I've been in that space. I want more of that, but I'm afraid because it's like it's such a bold step into a place of vulnerability."
Well, I mean, life's just too short to be safe. Being safe is a sellout. It's like we're not here to be safe. We're here to take chances, and the more chances you take, the stronger you grow. You also get beat up. But I mean, I think the hardest is just to let go of wanting approval.
Mhm.
You be listening internally, and it's like,
Yeah.
and you just grope, one hand on the rope after another to go deeper into what you have to say. But I
Yeah.
mean, Greco is another one. He had to sue everybody every time he had a painting commission for a church because nobody wanted the work when it was finished and they didn't want to pay him for it. So he was consumed with lawsuits his whole career, and he kept painting the way he wanted to paint. And no one really appreciated El Greco at all. I mean, that's why he passed into anonymity for a couple of hundred years and was only rediscovered by German scholars in the 1870s. But before that, you would go to Spain and some church would have an El Greco and they didn't even know who painted it. And nobody thought they were good. And yet I think El Greco embodies, the flaming prayer to God, that ascendance and that distortion and that insanity that's in his paintings, to me, is the real thing. That he distorted to grab you and say, "Listen to this message."
Mm.
So I mean, that's the thing. And just from teaching so many students, you know, really only after your voice, because the only way to paint is in your voice. And if
Yeah.
you're trying to make a voice that you think somebody else will like, you're just a marionette, trying to perform. So from the beginning, you should be painting in your own voice, and then your voice will deepen and claim you in return. But that's our business, is to speak in our own voice.
Speak in our own voice, and it seems like that's just the key to trying to have a good life in this time where there's so much noise and there's so much chaos of like how can we continue to live our life with our best voice, whether you're an artist or you're a musician or you're a business person, you
Yeah.
know, to
Authentic.
be authentic and not to bow down.
Right, right. Yeah, and to not participate in the compromising of your essence. You
Yeah.
know, you don't need to collaborate with those people. You just walk away.
Beautiful. I love these conversations that we've had for so many years,
Yeah,
going deep into nature, looking at the depth of art and the history that it represents for like you were saying, kind of that the flaming light of an El Greco, a Cezanne, a Joan Mitchell,
Yeah, it's
Giacomo.
magic incarnate. It's true magic.
Yeah, it's true magic, and that metric is that uncompromising, that ability to just what was the word that you used? You said some word I can't recall, but yeah, that ability to just so be ourselves.
Just stand in your own space, stand in your own light,
Yeah,
and that's the hardest, most unforgiving thing you can do. But when you look back, you're gonna go, "Oh, I'm really glad I was on that path."
yeah,
You're not looking for a reward. You're just the being on that path is its own reward. But it is lonely because it's not everybody's choice, and not everybody's called to do that. You know,
yeah.
we're all in debt to a lot of people doing jobs they don't like because they want to raise their kids, and it's
Mhm.
like that holds the world together. Or soldiers in an army. I mean, there's a lot of people doing what they have to do, and they help hold society together. Not everybody's supposed to do this, but if you're called to do it, then do it with the same courage that everybody else is called to stick with their path.
Living in Telluride for so long, would you say kind of that call to action to do that unique voice that's uncompromised? Do you see a comparison between the artists that we've talked about and this ideology that you're referring to and the extreme athlete, the mountaineers, or do you see some of that
Yeah,
comparison?
sure. It's another way to describe it is just pure passion. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, I think poetry is one of the most forbidding things for me because there's so much poetry that's really not satisfying. But when you find a poem that tells the truth about life, it shatters you.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, and these athletes, there's a lot of people who died doing their thing here, jumping
Yeah.
off a cliff and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's, I mean, I think people that live in Telluride, they've decided that I need to live in the most beautiful place I can find. My soul needs to be living in homage to nature at its most fantastic. And that's a calling too. That why is that important? Well, it is if your heart asks for it, So just it's to live in passion, and not look for safety.
To live in passion and not look for safety. Wise words from Robert Weatherford here, everybody. It's always a pleasure, Robert, to speak with you. Where can people see your work if they'd like to go deeper and see the work that you've produced in your lifetime?
Well, the path I'm on is I've had 5 galleries and I have no galleries now, and I don't even have a website anymore. Uh, I realized I'm at a stage in my life, I don't want to have to pimp my work.
Mm.
That's not my job. I'm not interested in it. So I'm going to make sure I pay my bills however I can do it. But my work is it's sacred. I have no need to get somebody's money for my work. If they knock on my door, sure, they can see it. But, uh, if your work is totally uncompromising, people don't know how to engage with it. And that's a good sign because then you didn't take a cheap out. You didn't try to please the mob. Uh,
Right.
so then that's what I call the long game. You're in it to see if some other generations can see the power of it because it's almost guaranteed that the people that you live among are not going to be ready for it because you're seeing a depth that they're not seeing.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
And now as you embark on your next journey, it's like you're going back to the seminary, back into the hermitage, into a place of anonymity, you know,
Yeah,
with your spouse in a new life.
yeah.
I, I wish you the best with your journey forward, and thank you for the influence you've had in my life with my
Yeah.
artwork and my own teaching. I really appreciate that.
Well, and I want to just say that I'm grateful, that life has given me Hudala Van Hilla, who shares the same idealism about work. And I never really wanted to hang out with artists before because it was always like, well, I'm not sure if I believe in their work. And I'm finally with an artist who is as completely uncompromising as I am, and it's like I've been swimming through the oceans and I'm finally approaching land, and I'm with a partner who really shares these values. And that's like an amazing gift. So thanks. It's great to see you again, too.
Yeah. And I wish you and Hudula a wonderful journey to Belgium and the start of a new chapter. And do hope to reconnect with you again someday in the future.
We will. Okay. Thanks,
Take
Daniel.
care, Robert.
All right.